Hello and welcome to Shop Talk with Dan the Man. Today's video we're going to discuss these. These are French cleats. These are made to hold up shelves, really anything you want to mount on a wall. They're a type of track system that you can take your shelves, move them wherever you want on the wall, and they're a great setup. So let's jump into that now, French cleats. Hello, if you're new to this channel, my name is Dan Shannon. I enjoy woodworking as a hobby and being out in the shop. On this channel, dive deep into my shop as we explore tools and tool reviews, as well as chatting about everything related to woodworking. If this grabs you by the tool belt, please subscribe to my channel if you want more videos like this. Hello and welcome to Shop Talk with Dan the Man. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, thanks for dropping back in. Today's video, we're just going to jump into the French cleat system. So, as you all know, my shop was under some renovations. I installed some electrical insulation and the paneling for the walls. And then after I was done, I thought, what do I do now for my shelf system? So I did mention a few times that I would like to do this French cleat system. So what is a French cleat? Well, I'm going to take you over to the wall and I'll show you basically what a French cleat is. So let's head over to the wall and I'll show you that now. You might be asking yourself, Dan, what is a French cleat system? Well, basically you have a board on the wall and it's tapered at a 45 that goes to the wall surface. So your narrow part of the board is against the wall, and then the widest part of the board is away from the wall. And then you cut another board and your shortest piece faces the outside. So you basically just slide that on, as you can see there, and there is your French cleat. So 45, 45, thinner part facing you, and this is what you would use for a shelf. So you'd build your shelf, you'd mount it to this strip here, and then whenever you wanted to take it on and off the wall, you just lift it up and you can remove it, or if you want to move it from side to side, you can just adjust that according to your wall setup. So I have a section here that I'm going to be storing some outdoor tools, probably my whippersnipper trimmer, and maybe my chainsaws and stuff like that. And then on the other side, I'll use that for more shop tool related. But that's an example of the French cleat. And you're probably wondering as well, if you're new to this French cleat system, which I'm new to it as well, which is kind of nice. We can share some back and forth ideas on, maybe shelving and the setup. But you want to make sure when you're installing this, and I have a video of me creating these strips and running it through the table saw, planing it down, and then of course the install. But you want to have a spacer. So depending on what you're hanging, if you're hanging something that's longer, you can go ahead and have a greater gap in between the strips. But if you're hanging smaller shelving, you want to keep these shelves, or these strips rather, closer together, so that when you install shelving, you have more options and more control over the range of the wall. So that's why I have multiple strips here, and they kind of coincide with the other wall. So if I want to do corner shelves, that's an option as well, because these are at the exact same height, so I can just build one in between. So I did put a lot of thought into how I was setting up, and I recommend you do that as well. Maybe get a piece of paper and write everything down as to your layout, what you're going to be installing on the wall, and just have your kind of your overall picture. It doesn't have to be 100%, because obviously these types of things you could add to them over the years, but the strips in general kind of what you'll be installing. And also keep in mind when you're measuring the gap here, whatever shelving you put on, you want to make sure there's enough space so that you can set in the shelf and bring it down. You don't want it too close together, or else you won't be able to remove your shelving unit. So there's a few things to think about when you're installing these strips, but you know, depending on what you're doing, like I said, you know, you'll space them accordingly. And we can dive into that. Maybe I'll do a separate video for this is kind of just a first look at the French cleat system, but we can dive into another video at some point and get more in depth of why would you space it this way, and what kind of things would you add to a wall, and why would you have them further apart, etc. But first look today, let's dive into how I made these strips, cut them, planed them, and installed them. So let's jump into that now. So the first step I need to do with my French cleat system is prep my boards. These are the boards I'm going to use. They are spruce flooring. I have 16 pieces of spruce flooring I'm going to use for my French cleat system. So the first thing I need to do is head over to the planer. So here we are at the planer. I'm going to run each board through to take any imperfections off the surface, and then I can head over to the table saw and cut my 45 to the exact width that I need. So let's jump in and get to planing these 16 boards. Okay, so I sent the boards to the planer. As you can see, I have lots of sawdust, and that's after 2 full big bags I had of shavings. So that is a lot of sawdust this produces, but the finished product, as you can see here, is very nice. So that's the finished product of my 14 boards, all nice and smooth and ready to go to the next step. The next step, once I get this shop put back together, is to throw them through the table saw and do a 45 on these so that they can be mounted on the wall as part of my French cleat system. So with a small shop, there are some issues that creep in, such as moving everything around. You can see my planer is in the middle of the floor, so I have to put that all away, put the stand away, and then pull out my table saw. So there is some challenges to small shop, but at the end of the day, you can definitely get everything done you need to get done. So let's jump into the next step, which is using the table saw to rip the mat F45. Okay, so I have all 16 boards cut, and as you can see here, the saw was at a 45 and I ripped all the pieces through. There is the offcuts, and I had a roller on the front to grab my material as it went through. Here is the finished 45. As you can see here, it looks really nice, really straight, and will make a great edge for the wall. And once I get my shelving made, I can attach another 45 the opposite way and it will be on the wall. So let's jump into the next step, which is putting these on the wall and fastening them to the wall so I have a spot to store all my shelving. So the wall that I'm going to use is this wall here. I'm going to put all my strips down the wall. I'm going to have them about 3 inches apart, give or take. And once I get going, you want to make sure your bottom board is exactly level, because as you go up, of course, if it's slightly off, it will look really bad. So I have to make sure the bottom strip is very level, and then of course I can move up. So my plugs, I'll have them slightly above, not to interfere with the plugs, and I'm going to have them go right to the ceiling, or pretty close to the ceiling, so I can hang stuff that I don't use on a regular basis up high, and then I can have storage all throughout my shop. So let's jump into that now. Let's put them on the wall. Okay, so here I am in the shop and I got all my boards cut. You just seen that. And now I'm going to grab them, and I have to move all my gear, tools and whatnot off this bench, and then so I can access that back wall. Once I do that, I can get my strips mounted. So that's what I'm going to jump into now, getting that moved and getting all my strips mounted on the wall. Make sure they're perfectly straight, and continue up to the very top so I can hang some high stuff. All right, let's jump into that now. Behind me, I just started my shop with this system. So I bought this from Amazon. This is a cordless tool shelf. So I have all my cordless tools, or most of them for the most part. Down below, there's storage for batteries. There's even a power bar you can put at the top and do all your charging. But I'm going to do that over on my other bench just for the convenience of the height and everything else. But what I did with this system, instead of screwing this directly to the wall, which is kind of standard, there's 4 holes. You can just take screws and drill them right into the stud. I decided to put a strip on the back. That way I can hang it on this French cleat system. And if I want to move this, if I want to move it further this way, further up, further down, I have that option. So that's what I really enjoy about the French cleat system. Notice over here as well, I have my clamps. So my clamps are on a board, and it's nothing fancy with this shelf. I'm going to probably redo it at some point, maybe cut some grooves in it so I can slide the clamps in further so they're not kind of hanging off the wall as far. But for now, I just wanted to get them on the wall. So I just took a board and then screwed it to a 45 on the back side so it could go into the track, and then I could put my clamps on. So very simple shelf, not really anything to it, and that's to store my clamps on the wall here. And then on the other side, I have my leaf blower, and that's just kind of one screw on a block, nothing crazy, but it holds it up there for now. And once again, I'll probably make something a little bit more fancy as I go. But basically, you can do anything with these French cleats. That's what's great about them. If you don't like the position of a shelf that you did build, you can move it and adjust it, move it up, down, etc. like I explained with this shelf here. I got a lot of ideas in my head. I want to do one for a sander. So my orbital sander here, I want to build a shelf for this that it'll have the sander on top, and then maybe a drawer system where I can put all the individual sandpaper, 120 grit, 80 grit, 320 grit, etc. And then that will be its own shelf on the wall. So there are some options. There is tons of patterns out there. You can go online, go on YouTube. There's a bunch of guys that talk about this French cleat system and the shelving you can build. So basically, sky's the limit. You can pull some ideas out of your own head, like I did, to hang different things for the time being. It doesn't have to be fancy, and you can kind of tweak your shelving as you go. So sometimes if you build one, you might notice your backboard is a little bit too high and it's kind of leaning out a little bit. You need longer braces coming down to cover between the two French cleats. So kind of trial and error a little bit, but if you go online, there's lots of people that have done this French cleat system, and they're professionals at when it comes to building these shelves, building these different units for your wall. And there's not really any set custom or set way to do this. I have this whole wall done, and then I have a little short wall here by the door, and eventually I want to do the back wall, and then I want to do we're in behind my other bench there. So I do have a set plan on how much French cleat system I want in my shop, and that's to hang things like a ladder, a stand. I have a small chop saw, that 7 1/4 that I did a tool review not too long ago. I want to hang that on the French cleat system on the far wall here. So I have to figure out what kind of devices or shelves or holders, if you will, to hold these different tools. So that would be some thinking on my part to figure out weight-wise, whether or not it sticks out a certain distance, and you have to factor in the lean of the shelf at that point. So you obviously want the gravity. So if you have anything that's sticking off your shelf or off your French cleat out, gravity is obviously going to pull it this way. So you have to account for that with a continuation of your shelf downward. So usually, however the distance is out, you want the same distance down, so it counterbalances so it doesn't tip. And we can get into that process later on when I start building. certain shelves, I will make more videos on these custom shelves. So we'll get into more of the fine tuning of the particular builds. But for today, it was just an introduction to French-cleat system. What is it? Is it good for your shop? You know, kind of that first look, if you will, on this system. So I really enjoy my setup. I'm excited to dive into more custom built shelving. Like I said, for my sander and different tools, I'll have one for my circular saw. I've seen some patterns online. It's pretty cool. You just hold the blade kind of into this oval shape cutout, and then it just kind of hangs in there, and then it's a bit of a 45, and that just snaps onto the French cleat system. So really cool designs. Like I said, there's a lot out there to pick from. So thanks for watching today's video, and you know, I hope you get a little grasp on the French cleat system and what it would mean to your shop. The shop isn't that big, and like I always say, it doesn't matter how big or how small your shop is. Just get out there and have fun, and why not build a French cleat system for your wall. Like I said, it doesn't matter how long or how small, depending on what you're storing or what your needs are for shelving. You would dive into the customization of the tracks and the French cleats. So thanks for watching today's video. And if you're not and you'd like to be part of the Shop Talk family, please click on that subscribe button below. Give me a thumbs up and any comments you might have. Maybe you already have French cleats. Maybe you already have everything set up in your shop and you want to share maybe some, you know, tweaks that other people could do, or some information or a website even that you found for patterns. That would be helpful. So please leave that down below in the comments. And yeah, thanks again for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Have yourself a great day.